nice. Room service if I like, I order twice. Hibachi, got the gravy on the rice. Rolling in.
Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome to another edition of the Steelers Q&A. It's Sunday night, closing out the weekend, getting ready for work. Well, we don't want to talk about that right now. Let's talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Everybody who joins this show, I'm sure this is your favorite subject to discuss. Daredevil already in the chat. I'm sure we'll get many more in here. Go ahead and hit the like button if you're watching on YouTube, on Facebook, on X. Retweet, repost, jump in and get in the comment section on YouTube. Share the show. Let's get as many eyes on this one as we can. It's going to be a fun show. We're going to break down a lot about the combine. We're going to talk about the new league year, some free agent stuff like that. But as far as the content of the show, that's on you. Give me your questions. Let's go ahead and get a bunch of these in so we can start talking about them. I don't have a guest with me tonight. Crazy busy week. I'm remodeling my house. Afton Forehead says, I like your ceiling. Unfortunately, Afton, that's coming down at some point. This whole room I'm in currently, it used to be, over here, used to be our laundry room. But it is going to be no more after we get done in a couple weeks here. And we're just going to be extending this house back this way, adding like 500 square feet to it. It's going to be crazy. But for now, it's kind of a mess. So just an insane week for me. I totally forgot to ask anybody to join. That's okay. Done them solo before. We've had a good time doing it. Let's do it again this time. Afton's already got questions coming in. Let's get more of these coming in. Before I get to the questions here, I just wanted to throw in some dates and times for you guys, just in case you are looking to get into the combine this year. If you haven't been following the NFL combine or the NFL draft closely and you want to get into it this year, the combine is coming up. It is the big pre-draft event where all these guys get together, the best of the best, the guys that are going to be drafted, and a lot of undrafted free agents in here as well. I think that it's going to be a big deal for the Steelers this year because of the type of class it is, but also it's a big deal for all these players. And it's the biggest conglomerate of teams and general managers, organizations, all the way top to bottom. These teams are in full force in Indianapolis, and it's big time for free agent news and the like as well. So keeping that in mind, the NFL Combine is this week. Starts this Thursday, February 27th to Sunday, March 2nd. And the day-to-day schedule goes a little something like this. On Thursday, it's defensive linemen and linebackers. On Friday, it is defensive backs and tight ends. On Saturday, it's quarterbacks, wide receivers, and running backs. And then Sunday is dedicated to the offensive linemen. So that's kind of the schedule for watching each of these position groups. And I got to tell you, there are some incredible talent on both sides of the ball on every day of this event. So we're going to have lots to glean from this. We're going to have a lot to get to. If we run out of questions in the chat, then I'll get to some of my favorite players at each position group that are going to be at the combine. I'm going to be talking about some free agent stuff as well. So get all of that in here. It's big offseason benchmarks on the horizon. That's the title of the show. And we're going to dive into them all. Let's go ahead and bring up the first question from Afton. Afton is one of the most loyal followers here, listeners. Thanks for tuning in, Afton. As always, thank you for your questions. Will Shedeur not throwing at the combine affect where he goes? I don't think so. I think that this is a guy who's going to rely a lot on his tape, and I think it's starting to become pretty clear that most NFL teams do not view him as the top quarterback in this class. Most view Cam Ward as having the better upside of the two, more NFL talent of the two. He's got a bigger arm. He's got some more mobility. He's a downfield pocket passer, though, by trade. So he's got a lot going for him. The only thing I think that is a detriment maybe for Shedeur not throwing at the combine is the fact that we don't get to see one of the better quarterbacks tossing to receivers that need to make catches, need to show their route running ability. And, the better quarterbacks that we have in there, the better we get to see from these receivers and things like that. So actually it's kind of a passive deal that he's not going to be doing this. I think it affects more of that, but we will get to see some quarterbacks further down throw. I think I'm really excited to watch guys like Jalen Milroe if he's going to throw. If Jalen Milroe throws, I'll be tuning in for that, no doubt. If Will Howard throws, I'm going to be tuning in for that, no doubt. There's going to be several quarterbacks. Tyler Shaw, I think I'm pronouncing that right. Maybe not. I'll have to look that one up. But yeah, so Shedeur, after not throwing at the combine, I don't think it messes with his draft stock at all. But I do think it's going to dim the product a little bit that we see from the quarterbacks, obviously in the throwing sessions, maybe from the receivers as well, because of how that works together. So, Afton says, I'm all for hearing about players to watch. We'll get to that here in a little bit then. George T. asks, and gets straight to it, who do you think goes at 21 for the Steelers? I am really torn right now between two position groups. I think that's kind of where it's settling in. And a lot of beat writers, analysts for the Steelers are going to say the same thing. So I'm not saying anything new here. But I think it's defensive line, interior defensive line. I think it's wide receiver for the Steelers at 21. And they're just going to probably take the best player available on their board at either position when they get around to pick 21. Now, if there's several guys that they like still on the board at both of those positions, it feels like a chance that maybe the Steelers could trade down and pick a little bit later, maybe accumulate some picks this year and or next year. I know there should be a lot of talk from the Steelers about improving their draft status for 2026 in Pittsburgh, better quarterback year, most likely. And then the ability to probably get the quarterback that they want or have the ammo to go up and get one if they have a good season this year or even a decent season and they're not picking super high. So that's going to be what I think at 21, I think is the defensive tackle or wide receiver. And if I had to pick one of those guys right now that I really want there, it would be Derek Harmon from Oregon, defensive tackle. And then it would also be Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State, the Ohio State University. For those who don't know, I'm a big-time Buckeyes fan. And I would love for either one of those guys to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. There's some other guys in that range that I wouldn't mind seeing as well. I would not hate it if the Steelers drafted a corner here, but I think this is a really deep corner free agency class. So I would steer more towards adding starter-capable guys at corner in free agency, and then maybe spend those draft picks up front or on the wide receiver on the offensive side of the ball. We'll talk about position groups a little bit later. I've got a sneaky one that I think the Steelers might look at in the middle of this draft that wouldn't maybe seem to be, especially after recent moves. So here's another question. Mark Cunningham bets, what position group do you think is the deepest? Defensive line, offensive line, maybe running back? Mark, it's not maybe running back. It's definitely running back. This is a fantastic running back class. You're going to get starter-capable running backs on day 3 of this draft. And starter-capable, I mean year 1, year 2. Those guys can get in and be impact players right away. That's just the type of running back draft this is. It's very interesting as teams are going more to passing offenses and all that we would have a year like this kind of in the middle of the running back slump. It's going to make it tough for running backs in free agency, but it's also going to make it really good for NFL teams wanting to get a boost in the running in their running attacks. There's somebody for everybody in this draft class in every round. So if you are willing to take a flyer on one with a pick that you would consider a valuable pick, a day 2 pick, second or third round, if you're willing to jump on one of those guys, you're going to be rewarded for it. Although it might not be at what is considered a position of great value in the NFL these days. I do think it's a group that is the deepest. Defensive line is deep. The edge rusher group is pretty deep as well. The offensive line group is okay. I think that it's a better interior class than a tackle class, but that's just my opinion. There's some people who think differently on that, and I'm not going to argue with anybody there. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm an offensive line expert either. I'm not. So if I had to pick a position group that I'm like, I'm going to defer to somebody else, then that would be the one. So I still think it's okay. It's a good group of offensive linemen. It's not super flashy. And it's not super duper deep at wide receiver. There's a few guys here that you like, but they're role playing wide receivers for the most part outside of the top 3, 4, 5 guys. And then beyond that, it's flyers on guys with upside, or it's guys to fill roles on your team. So that's the kind of draft it is for that one. Brian Brown, thanks for all the questions right off the top, guys. Keep them rolling here. Makes me able to just jump in and talk to you guys, and you guys direct the show. Perfect. Brian Brown asks, do you think the Steelers will hire a wide receiver coach who teaches players to keep going even if the route is covered instead of just quitting on the play? I'm going to sit back and assume, Brian, that is happening in Pittsburgh, that Zach Azzani does coach that to his players, and that it's more of a matter of the players doing it. I think it's pretty ironic to me, a professional football player at the wide receiver position who will give up on routes on a regular basis. And I know the Steelers have had issues with that. George Pickens, obviously. Deontay Johnson, I don't think he ever gave up on routes necessarily, but he would give up after the play if it wasn't going his way. He was not one to kind of block for the other guy, jump in for a teammate. So I don't think that it's being presented in the locker room, or not in the locker room, but in the meeting room for the wide receivers. If it's not going your way, just that's fine. Don't worry about it. Arthur Smith specifically, as the leader of this offense in total, is not going to let that pass as a coaching practice. So to me, it's not the coach. It's not the coach. It's the players. At some point, despite how we want to feel about the coaching staff, I do think that it comes down to the players wanting to. You're not going to be a coach in the NFL if you're teaching players to give up on plays, and not hammering it home every day that they need to keep going. So, Boxing Man 1. Oh, thank you for bringing up this guy. I cannot believe I left him off my list of guys that I would like to see the Steelers draft in the first round. Kenneth Grant, if he's there at 21 and the Steelers take him over anybody else, I would not hate it a bit. I would love it. This is a guy who could change the entire dynamic of your front seven with his presence alone. He's kind of like if you were to who's the guy out of Georgia a couple years ago, Jordan, his name's escaping me, but forgive me for that, but Jordan something. He's that type of player, but I think higher motor, like never quit, better athlete overall, maybe even then. Somebody help me out in the comments here. Not Jalen Carter. The one before that, Jordan. No. Boxing Man's trying to help me out, but it's not the guy I want. It's Jalen Carter's a beast, but I'm talking about the guy the previous year who went to them and is just because he's so big. Give me a second here. This is Jordan Davis. Thank you, Daredevil. Jordan Davis. This is a Jordan Davis type player from a size perspective, but stronger and more explosive, I think. So this is a guy I think could change the total upside of your defense, especially up front, because of his presence on the field against the run, and he can get after the quarterback as well. He's going to be great. He really is. So, let's see. This is a good question. How long before Kyber comes out of his coffin? I think he put out his first mock draft a little while ago. Andrew Wilbar was talking about it, I think, but I'm to be honest, never been a Kuiper fan. I've just never been a Kuiper fan. His personality is good for TV, and but I go other directions for my mock drafts. Really, do a lot on my own as well. So, but I don't know. This is a guy that needs to probably get out of there soon if he's going to have any say in how the fans and TV watchers view this draft class. So, let's see here. Okay, Justin Benjamin asked first round pick will be, I think, a defensive tackle or a wide receiver. I mentioned let's see, I mentioned Walter Nolan. I mentioned Derek Harmon. I mentioned Kenneth Grant now. And then at wide receiver, Mika Ekbuka. Matthew Golden's a guy that I would look at in the first round as well. Jedi Barron, a cornerback, if he's there at 21, this could be one of those guys that you absolutely just run the card up to the table for if you're Pittsburgh because of the way he plays defense and corner. So he would be the wild card to me in that range. So we'll see how it plays out, obviously, and we'll see which direction the Steelers are leaning after the combine and rumors swirling and all that good stuff. But the Steelers haven't been shy to hide their hand as they've gone into big events. And the Senior Bowl, where they were just honed in on defensive tackle and wide receiver for that event, that tells me, specifically defensive tackle, that is high up on the priority. I would not mind a double dip at defensive tackle in this draft, and then adding in the old triple dipper in free agency as well. Bring in a bunch of guys there, try to remake that room to be a strength alongside Cam Hayward and TJ Watt up front, Keanu Benton, really build that up. Let's see. A good comment here for Boxing Minimum. Jalen Royal will be a big steal at wide receiver. I love Jalen Royal. I think he's a great player. He's going to be a lot of fun to watch here at the combine. His skill set is very similar to me of a Juju Smith-Schuster, kind of a big slot type player. Has got a lot of upside in that regard. He can move outside too, like Smith-Schuster could. So he's got some upside in this league, and I'm very, very much in on him. Wide receivers in free agency. This is a good one, and one I would like to stick on for a minute, because I think that there's a group of guys that fit the Steelers mold, if you will, in free agency. And the leader of that to me is Chris Godwin. And he's still young, 28 years old, I believe, by the time the season starts. Coming off an injury. This year this year's an injury, so his cost is going to come down. I think the Steelers are going to draft here as well. I think they're fine with their ability to develop receivers. So I think that there's a guy who you take a risk on and you pay him some money, you bring him in, and if he hits, he could take a lot of pressure off of Pickens on the outside because of how he plays. So let's get a good look at this guy, Chris Godwin, in free agency. Afton, I would love that. The T. Higgins would have been my favorite, but after the franchise tag rumors that's going to be placed on him, I doubt he ends up landing in Pittsburgh. That would have been a dream signing, most likely. There's a few other guys that you could add that would be quality veteran leadership in there. I'm not pushing for this necessarily, but Keenan Allen's a free agent. He still shows that he can play when he's healthy, but that is a big factor for him. I believe Cortland Sutton's a free agent this year. I could be wrong about that. If he's got a year left on his deal, maybe the Steelers try to jump back in on a trade. That's on me for not knowing exactly how that works. So, or where he's at. So if somebody knows in the comment section, pull that up and we'll talk about it. But there's several guys in here that I really like. Go check out Andrew Wilbar and myself on the Steelers Fix podcast. We talked about offense a couple weeks ago in our free agency frenzy. Some guys that we'd like to see potentially signed by the Steelers. So there's a few guys there, but Chris Godwin's probably my favorite of the guys that I see, and he would be an immediate impact player for the Pittsburgh Steelers at a position where they could use him. He's not a small receiver, so he can play Z if you wanted him to, while you work Calvin Austin and others into the lineup. So he would be a good fit. Brian Brown follows up on his comment earlier about the receivers. I agree with you. So frustrating to see a QB escape, just to see receivers doing nothing. If you have Justin Fields back at quarterback, that can't happen anymore. So, Brian, you're exactly right. It is so frustrating to see nothing there. The reason Antonio Brown and some of these guys were so impactful for Pittsburgh is they never gave up on a play. Say what you want to about Antonio Brown now. He never gave up on a play. So that was how they had such a good connection, him and Roethlisberger. And it's been a while since we've seen that. So, all righty, let's keep scrolling here. Mark Cunningham says, no way Grant is still there at 21. If we got him, we got to go get him. That may very well be the case by the time the draft comes around. That's why it says if he's there at 21, you go get a guy like that. There's a good chance after his combine performance that this guy's a top 15 type pick. Somebody's going to fall in love with him. And since it's not a great quarterback class where we're going to see a bunch of those guys go early, you're going to see big time position players go pretty fast in this draft. So I think that plays into this. So Mark, you're probably right. By the time it's all said and done, we can keep our fingers crossed for something like that though. John S., what is the biggest factor in bringing back Justin Fields? Is it money? Seems like Fields wants to come back and many inside the organization want him back. I think right now the Steelers are getting a feel for what's out there. The rumor about Trevor Lawrence was only substantial in the fact that the Steelers were calling around. Not that it was ever going to get done or anything like that, but testing the waters. That to me sounds like a team that is searching every nook and cranny under rocks, out in the outback of Australia. They're going wherever they can to find a quarterback. They're going to exhaust all their options before deciding on bringing back somebody that was here last year. I think Justin Fields is still the best bet. I would love Matthew Stafford in Pittsburgh, but there is something to be said for the Steelers need to be acquiring draft picks, not giving them up, especially when you're looking at 2026 and the chance to have a shot at a big-time quarterback. How crazy would it be for a Manning to be the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers? You'd have to go up to number 1 overall probably by the end of next year to get that. But just thinking out loud there, it would be fun. It would be a lot of fun. I don't see any more questions in here right now, so we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. If you're listening live, we're not going anywhere. We're just going to pause for a second. And for those listening on audio, we'll be right back after this short break. And welcome back to the Steelers Q&A. It's Jeremy Betts solo this week, talking to you about the Pittsburgh Steelers, answering your questions. Let's see here. Brian Brown's got to go. What would it take to get the Browns to put this logo, the poop emoji, on their helmets for their color rush turd burglar suits? Wouldn't that look awesome? It would look great. It would look fantastic. It would be a great impression of who they actually are, right? Be who you are. Just no pretense. No need to hide it anymore. Just be who you are. And, Myles Garrett won't have to worry about it because he'll be gone probably if they let him walk. If not, I would hold out. If you're Myles Garrett, I would hold out. I wouldn't play for that team. Get me out of there. That's ridiculous. But yes, Brian, that would be a great idea. I love that idea. Love it, love it, love it. All right. Since there's a little bit of a break here on questions, keep them coming if you have them. I'm going to go through some position groups here just real quick. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I want to go through some position groups, combine invitees, players I would love for the Steelers to study up close and personal in this class. All right, let's start at quarterback. My guy in this draft at quarterback is Will Howard. That's my guy. Yes, I'm a Buckeyes fan. It's not because of that. It's because of the type of player he is and the prototypical traits he possesses, plus the modern NFL quarterback ability that he has. He's not a Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields runner. He's not a rushing quarterback necessarily. Not even a Josh Allen probably. This is a guy, though, that can scramble and use his legs to put himself in a better position to throw the football and get out and run if he has to, and pick up a 3rd and 10, a 3rd and 12, or something like that in man coverage when guys are running way down the field and nobody picks up the quarterback. And he's not going to cost you a super high pick, probably a 3rd round pick, maybe a 2nd rounder. I'm not spending a 2nd rounder on him. I guess I would say that. But if he's there in the 3rd, really considering it. If he's there in the 4th, I'm running the card to the table. That's my guy at quarterback here. I like Kyle McCord a lot as well. Not quite as big. I don't believe I could be wrong about that. I'll have to check his measurements again. But he's got NFL talent. He's not a huge arm, but he's accurate, smart. I think the games were too big for him when he was at Ohio State playing in Syracuse. It took some of the pressure off. He's shown there. I think that you would need to see something like that out of him early in his career, where he kind of builds up to it, where you got to give him a running start into it. He could have some upside. Jalen Milroe is a guy they need to really, really look at. And then Tyler Show out of Louisville is a guy they really need to look at for middle to late rounds. It's got to be on your radar there. Let's see. Just checking for questions. Here's one from Mark Cunningham. Knowing free agency will dictate what we do early in the draft. All things being equal, is wide receiver our biggest need, assuming Fields comes back? All things being equal, it's our biggest need. Yes, wide receiver is our biggest need. Is it the most beneficial to the team to add one first? Maybe not. It's a deep defensive tackle class, so if you get one in the second round, you feel pretty good about that. And I would assume that the Steelers are not going to spend huge amounts of money at wide receiver in free agency. So yeah, it kind of is. It's your biggest need. I'm all for it. I'm all for, if you bring back Fields, just loading up the offense with as much talent as you absolutely can to see what he's got for one more year before you decide whether or not he's your guy moving forward. So I don't know. It's a tough question, but I do think it's up there. If it's not defensive tackle, it's wide receiver for sure. Doesn't pass the smell test for any other position, in my opinion. Tom K, it doesn't matter what running back we have, can't run with 10 men in the box. Passing would help this. Yes, absolutely. So a great point. And you've got to have a guy who teams fear can beat them down the field with his arm. Can Fields do that? That's a legitimate question. Is that a guy that they would fear down the field? So even if you don't have all the guys at wide receiver, you got to have a quarterback who can do that. But it would help. It would help to get a couple big play receivers in there to add to that group. So I like it. Raul Havana says, sign Barry Foster. No kidding, right? I'm sure he could be better than some of the players that teams have trotted out in the last few years. Dallas last year. Let's see. Brian Brown says, get that first round punter. Yeah, that'd be fun. That'd be a lot of fun. I don't think they're going to do that. I would not do that either. But hey, Brian, live your dream, man. Live your dream. Let's get to let's see what's next on here. Running backs. Okay. All right. I'm going to give you some of my guys at running back here that I really like. Ollie Gordon. You've heard me talk nonstop about Ollie Gordon. Travion Henderson. Oh man. Just load up on the Buckeyes, right? Just bring in all the Buckeyes. Any Buckeye fans in the chat? Let's just bring in all the Buckeyes. I like Caleb Johnson. I'm not going to spend a second round pick on Caleb Johnson probably. I'm not as big a fan of Quinshon Judkins, okay? And that's just honesty coming from an Ohio State fan here. For Pittsburgh, I don't know if Judkins is my cup of tea. He's a good player, but I'm looking for something different at wide receiver. Wow. Looking for something different at running back, excuse me. And I think that they could do better than that. Bishel Tutin out of Virginia Tech gets my other look here. A lot of people like Cam Scatabo. He's interesting, but I don't know. He doesn't fly my kite very high as far as, oh, wow, we're going to be such a better team if we get Cam Scatabo. I could be completely wrong, but I like somebody with a little bit more pop. But although I do like his receiving work out of the backfield, he's kind of Jaylen Warren clone to me. And you don't need another Jaylen Warren. You need somebody else. That's my question. Let's see. Wide receivers. Jack Beck, TCU. I like Isaiah Bond out of Texas. He's the other Texas receiver nobody's really talking about here. But he's got a lot of upside, and I really like him. Luther Burden the third, he would be a dream pick at 21, I think, out of Missouri. He's well built for a speedy guy. I would love to have him in Pittsburgh. Emeka Egbuka, obviously. Matthew Golden is in that list. Outside of the first round, Jaden Higgins is my guy. This guy, I love his play style. Another one of those big slots that can play on the outside too. He's got a little bit more explosiveness, great hands, never quits on the ball. He would be a really fun mid-round pick if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's see here. Tez Johnson showed me something at the Senior Bowl, and he's so small. I think this guy is less than 160 pounds. He is so small, but get him on the move, crossers and stuff like that. He's interesting. And then like punt returner type stuff. But they've got Calvin Austin. They don't need another little guy on the team. They need some bigger, some size and stuff. Jalen Royals is fun. I really like him. We talked about him already. Arian Smith out of Georgia has some upside. There's a lot of wide receivers in here. Savion Williams out of TCU is fun too. Check out his tape if you like to watch tape. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Let's go with another question here from John S. Will a rookie lead the Steelers in rushes this season? That is a good question. I'm going to say no because of where I think the Steelers are going to take one. But I think that wherever they do get a guy, he's kind of there after year one where Jaylen Warren probably takes most of the load and you're kind of filling in as the lightning to his thunder or whatever you want him to be. I do think that there's a good chance that whoever they draft this year would be potentially their leading rusher as a sophomore, but I'm not going to say a rookie yet because of Jaylen Warren, because of the interest that they've shown in some veteran guys too. Take what you will out of that. Nick Chubb is being talked about, but obviously that's something to think about. Here's the group I want to talk about that I think is a sneaky area where the Steelers should consider drafting somebody. I know they've got 6 or 7 of these guys on the roster right now. Tight end, clear out the room. Give me Pat Freiermuth. Give me Darnell Washington. Dylan Parham Jr. is fun, right? I mentioned that on X after they signed him. But go draft somebody. Go get somebody here. This is a super fun class. Harold Fannin Jr. out of Bowling Green. This guy's insane. And he's not going to go on day one. He's going to be a day 2 guy. I think he'll go day 2 probably. Harold Fannin Jr. There's some good tight ends here. Tyler Warren is amazing. Tyler Warren is incredible. You talk about a guy, if the Steelers want to run a lot of 2 tight end sets and be really dynamic from tight end, not just great blocker and Darnell Washington and a good receiver in Pat Freiermuth. Tyler Warren on this team would be insane. I don't think he lasts to 21 either. But that's fun stuff. That's the kind of outside the box thinking that I would like to see from the Steelers every now and then. I don't know though. You might be throwing Mike Tomlin out the door if they draft who excuse me. Who would you guys blame if the Steelers draft somebody that you don't like? Is it Omar Khan's fault or is it Mike Tomlin's fault? Who would you blame? Let me know in the comments. Tight end from Mark says, I'll pull it up so we have it up here. That tight end from Miami is nice. You agree, Betts? I do. Elijah Arroyo. Woo. You want something fun to do? Go sit and watch his tape. Even if you don't like tape watching, go look up Elijah Arroyo on YouTube, highlights, and just sit back while you're running treadmill at the gym or doing rows or something like that, whatever you're doing. Sitting at home at night, watch some Elijah Arroyo tape. It's lots of fun to watch. Tyler Warren, though, even more fun. Not realistic for the Steelers. I just hope he doesn't end up in like Cincinnati or something like that. George T asks, can they actually sign Fields now or do they have to wait for an actual signing date? Is that what is holding things up? No, they can sign him anytime. Justin Fields was a member of their team. They can bring him back anytime. They can agree to deals with him anytime, is my understanding of things. So we'll see how it plays out, but they have access to him prior to free agency. And I think we'll hear a lot about their direction at the combine this week. So keep an ear out for that. Biggest thing that you'll probably get out of the combine this week is rumors as to where the Steelers are going, whether that's quarterback, whether that's first-round draft pick, free agency. You're going to hear a lot of those guys. Let's see here. Okay, let's keep rolling. Offensive linemen. I'm not taking anybody in the first round, but there's a few guys here that I really like down the road. Dylan Fairchild out of Georgia plays guard. He's got a lot of upside. I like Joshua Gray out of Oregon State. Go check him out. Donovan Jackson out of Ohio State's a lot of fun. So there's some guys in here that I really like. See, there was one other player here that I wanted people to be aware of. Okay, he's not at the combine. He was, or no, there he is. Clay Webb. Clay Webb was at the Senior Bowl. This is a big dude. He can move people in the middle of the field, and he'd be a guy that could kind of fill in like a Mason McCormick type pretty early as a depth piece along the interior of the offensive line. Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State's fun, but he's probably going to go in the first round or early second. I'm not spending a draft pick on an offensive lineman there if I'm the Steelers. I've got other needs. So, all right, let's see. A couple more position groups here, then we'll kind of head out if we don't have any more questions. Defensive linemen. We've already talked about this one a lot. I really like several players here that make a ton of sense for the Steelers. One player I didn't mention yet, Alfred Collins from Texas. Love this guy's tape. I mocked him to the Steelers in the second round in my initial mock draft. Go check that out on steelcurtainnetwork.com. Really like him. Derek Harmon, we talked about him. A lot of the early guys. I like Cam Jackson out of Florida. He's got some upside. Kyle Kennard he's more of a defensive end player, but he's fun. Walter Nolan, we talked about him. Scrolling here. Nazir Stackhouse out of Georgia. Stackhouse was kind of supposed to be the next great thing in Georgia after Jalen Carter. It didn't end up that way. I think that he's going to be really impressive, though, at the combine. I think he's going to be really impressive when you go back and look at some of the tape this last year, the way he finished out. He's a guy I really like potentially as well. And then Deion Walker out of Kentucky. A lot of the names that you've heard already are some of the same guys that I like. So Tyleik Williams out of Ohio State, another Ohio State boy that I really like. Linebackers, I haven't dived into the linebackers too much yet this year, probably because it's pretty far down my list of needs for the Steelers. But there's a few guys that are really interesting early in this draft. There's where'd he go? I'm not seeing him here. So since we're talking about combine guys only, and we'll leave that alone for now. But Andrew and I will dive into maybe some of these on the Draft Dynasty podcast or the Steelers Fix. So linebacker, I haven't gotten into many of these guys yet. I like Kobe King out of Penn State. I like a lot of those Penn State guys. They play fast. They play downhill. He's fun to watch. But defensive backs, this is where it gets very interesting. There are so many good ones here. Some safeties, Nick Emmanwori. There's some cornerbacks that I really like. You've got Mac Williams out of UCF. Love me some Mac Williams. I like Jalen Reed out of Penn State too as a safety. Malachi Starks out of Georgia is a lot of fun at safety. Azariah Thomas out of Florida State at corner. There's a ton of guys here at defensive back that I would love the Steelers to bring in. The middle of the draft is going to be where that's really good, because I think you add in some guys via free agency here. That looks pretty good too. So the Steelers can really round out their secondary pretty well. My biggest deal for this offseason that I think the Steelers have to do is find a nickel corner, a starting nickel corner, a stud nickel corner right now, because that was a weak area by the time that the end of the season came around. And if you shore that up, I think they have some guys that you can be pretty excited about on the outside, especially if you add some depth there as well. All right. Mark Cunningham says, I won't really worry unless we still haven't signed Fields a week after the combine. What say you, sir? I might not even be worried after that, because there's a chance he wants to see what he could get in free agency, money-wise. If the Steelers are, say, offering him 2 years, $20 million total, then he might want to see what he could get in free agency. So I won't panic necessarily, because I'm also not sold on him being the only option for the Steelers, because I'm fine with whatever direction they end up going as long as they are committed to it. This might be the part where I lose some people, but if the Steelers commit to Justin Fields or Matthew Stafford, say those two guys, and say, okay, we're going to build around one of these guys, we're going to try to win now, or see if Justin Fields can be the guy who can help us win now, fine with that. Commit to it, though. Go all out. Spend your money in free agency. Add to the roster. Spend your draft picks where you need to develop this team on high-end talent now that helps you now. Okay? And then worry about it next year at quarterback if you have to. Mortgage the future if you have to go get the quarterback. But right now, just go for it. Or don't, and go sign Marcus Mariota or Andy Dalton and win 5 games and bring home a top 6 or 7 pick. Okay? Commit to something, though. Okay? No more of this, well, we think we're a Super Bowl competitor, but we're not going to be willing to spend to that capacity or bring in talent to that capacity. We're going to win with the guys that we have because we've got the star power to make it work. And all we need is just a guy who can be mediocre at quarterback, and we're going to be just fine there because our defense is going to be so good. You can't count on anything in the NFL. So get the best players you can everywhere you can if you want to win now. If not, commit to not being good. And I don't think they're going to do that because you have TJ Watt and Cam Hayward on this roster. I don't think they are going to do that. I think they're going to think that they're going to feel like they owe it to those guys to put together a winner. And I don't blame them for that. It's a tough position to be in. I would not like to make the decision, but yeah, quit putting such a value on value and go get some guys that actually are there to help your team win. Do what you have to do. Spend the money, okay? Yeah, Afton, you said it. Afton, man, you probably said this before I even said what I said. Or look at all these value players. Yeah, don't need any of that, okay? A few of those guys is great. But let's go get some guys that help us win, or don't and suck for a year. Just do it and see what happens. And I don't think that that's going to go over too well with the studs that you have there, but we shall see. Good conversation tonight. Thanks so much for all of your questions. I hope I did not miss any here. Let's just pull this up from Russ since he came in a little bit later here and I missed it. Jeremy, a sleeper for O-line is left tackle. Milas from West Virginia played with Zach Frazier, can be coached up. Yeah. Oh, yeah, you're right. Let's see if I can find him on here. Did he get a combine invite? I cannot remember if he did or not, but is that his last name? Is Milas? Oh, Milam. Yeah, Wyatt Milam. That's right. Yeah, he's going to the combine. So, yeah, he's a guy to watch for sure, too. Thank you, Russ, for bringing that to my attention. Good stuff. I love it. Appreciate all of you guys. I think that this is going to be a fun offseason, and you guys are along the ride for it with me. And I'm going to be here for all of it on the Steel Curtain Network, Fans First Sports Network. Stay tuned to all of it. Check out my articles on steelcurtainnetwork.com and fansfirstsports.com as well, going through each of the divisions and each of the teams about their offseason wish lists. With the combine arriving this week, free agency in just a couple weeks after that, it's going to get busy and big offseason benchmarks right upon us here on the horizon. So stay tuned. We'll be with you for all of it. Thanks again for tuning in. This has been the Steelers Q&A. We'll talk to you next.